play. And the haters gonna hate, 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 baby. I'm just gonna shake, 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 shake. Shake it off, shake it off. Heartbreaker's gonna break, 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 break. And the faker's gonna fake, 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 baby. I'm just gonna shake, shake, shake.
About a year and a half ago, 2 years? How long has it been? Sit down.
Been here?
About 2 years.
About 2 years?
Well, like a year and a half. We
Okay.
met back last year.
So somehow or another, I got this message on Facebook from this lady, this beautiful lady, you know, her profile picture. And she was sharing with me that she was a holistic practitioner. Her husband was a holistic pediatrician, an integrative pediatrician. And I was very excited about that because I follow the teachings of Dr. Hyman very closely, and I feel like it resonates with me because I'm a registered nurse, so I'm not all the way here, all the way there. I feel like there's a space for all of that. So I was really excited, and I've been playing phone tag and email tag, Facebook tag with these people, and they had heard about me like a couple years ago, and we are finally in this moment in time able to have this moment, this special moment for me to introduce them. So with honor, I want to introduce Dane Fliedner. He is a board-certified pediatrician and certified by the American Board of Integrative Holistic Medicine. While working in Dallas as both a doctor and faculty at UT Southwestern's medical school, his children began experiencing chronic health problems. I'm sure you're going to share with us about that. And so he took his children to an alternative health practitioner who was able to effectively diagnose and heal. I mean, isn't that what happens is we take our kids somewhere and they don't diagnose and heal them, they just give them a pill. Or they go, well, they just need to go home and, you know, it has to run its course. I mean, why does everything have to run its course and then you have to just, you know, dose them with Tylenol or Motrin? That's the mainstream way, right? That's the way I did it. I'd take them for every sniffle and go, oh, I don't want to like be the mom, like the kid gets lethargic and dies, you know, because I didn't take them, so I was always at the doctor. But there was nothing that they ever did for me but let's let it run its course or give me an antibiotic or whatever. So now Dane hopes to help families and children by combining the best of allopathic or the medicine that we know in Western society for acute care needs, functional and holistic medicine for chronic medical conditions, and yoga therapy for mind, spirit, body medicine, which I'm excited about. So thank you, Dane.
Thank you.
Dr. Dane.
Dane's fine.
And then his beautiful wife, Sapna. She's a holistic health nutrition coach. Did you go to IIN too?
I did.
Another IIN, yes. Received her formal training from IIN, yes. She's the co-founder of their place, which you guys are going to want to like write it down. Raising Sages, Integrative, Pediatric and Holistic Wellness in Orange County. Is that in Newport?
Yes.
Newport Beach. And she's traveled extensively throughout Asia, studied various Eastern healing modalities like Ayurveda, which she's going to share with us about that, pranic healing, and uses herbs, spices, essential oils, and food as medicine. What a concept, right?
Yes.
That we would actually think that food could help us.
Yes.
It's not just something we do because we just like are hungry. She works with autism, a lot of kids with autism.
We see autistic allergies, ADHD, asthma, those kind of children who have a lot of food allergies.
Well, digestive issues, chronic fatigue, various. I know you work a lot with kids with allergies. I won't go on anymore because you're going to share it with us. I'm excited. I'm going to get off the stage so you guys can tell us all your amazing stuff because we're ready to hear it. So thank you.
Thank you.
It's with a great honor that I go sit down there and listen to you guys. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Dottie.
So just to share a couple minutes on sort of the journey because I get asked a lot. Since I'm conventionally trained, I'm Orange County boy, grew up out here, trained at UC Irvine, so local kid, was pretty much in the conventional box, was raised eating junk food and going to Disneyland and everything and just thought that was normal. And so I went through the training and we had our kids and we were having some chronic issues with our daughters, our younger one especially. Is this, maybe I should move this just a little bit. Is that better? Okay. And we basically saw lots of pediatricians because I didn't want to be the doctor. I wanted to be dad. And she was having stomach problems, GI bloating, all kinds of stuff. And they all just kind of went, nothing's wrong. You're petite. She's petite. She's just going to be a little girl. She wasn't growing. She was under the 3rd percentile on the growth curves. They just sort of shrugged their shoulders. So we went to the head of Peds GI at UC Irvine because I knew him, so I could pull strings, and kind of did the workup, and it was sort of the same thing, and it was like, okay. And time goes, and we just thought, well, maybe we're just crazy, and maybe they're right. So
No, I never thought that.
well, but everything was turning out normal, so we're still on our journey. But at that time, during the housing bubble a few years ago, we had a growing family, and so we moved to Dallas just to be able to afford a house and everything else. And ended up working at UT Southwestern Medical School and pulled some strings to get the head of that department. And UT Southwestern, if you haven't been in Texas, everything is bigger in Texas. And it's like chalk 3 times over. It's just a massive place. And I told her, I said, well, if this guy doesn't know what he's doing, if he can't figure it out, then there's nothing really wrong, and we just need to let this go. So we saw him, did the workup, everything was normal. Clearly everything was not normal, but so we were told. And he just shrugged his shoulders and let us go. I said, well, we'll check her next year, see how she's not thriving, and that was it.
Meanwhile,
Okay.
she's 6 now, so this has been going on since
years
birth.
that we've been doing this. Finally, out of desperation, she was getting more alternative in her mindset. I was still more in the box. And she said, well, can we just go see an alternative doc, a naturopath, something like that? And I said, at this point, we have nothing to lose. So we went and saw her, and it was just a doc in the box kind of on the local naturopath, no one special that we searched out and traveled for. And basically, in one visit, figured out she was having wheat intolerance and, leaky gut and all this other stuff, and we made some basic changes to their diet, and for the first time in her entire life, she'd had a formed stool. She wasn't bloated. Our other daughter, who we just had to put on the same diet, her nasal allergies went away in a couple of days, and she had been on all the Claritins and Nasonex and all the, the whole homeopathic, Ayurvedic, everything, and nothing had gotten better. So that was really an eye-opening thing, and that was the beginning of my journey into this world. And so we decided to move back to Southern California because I couldn't take Texas summers anymore. And so in between, we decided to travel, and so we sold off all of our belongings and took a hippie year, basically, and traveled one-way tickets to India, and that's where she studied Ayurveda, and I studied yoga and yoga therapy and so forth, and we've just been kind of building it ever since. And so we've opened our place a few months ago, and we're just building the practice and trying to work with like-minded people and get sort of a high-vibe family in our practice. And so, thank you. So, anyway, so what we're going to try to do to talk about today is we're trying to kind of, Ayurveda is a subtle level, and then functional medicine's a little bit more biologically based, and we think that there's very much a lot of overlap, even though they may not be speaking the same words. The underlying sort of philosophy is very much in alignment, and so that's what we're going to talk about today, is how can we promote wellness for our kids using the best of the old stuff of Ayurveda with the best of the new things with functional medicine, the Mark Hyman wheat belly and green brain and all that other fun stuff that you probably know about.
So how many here know about Ayurvedic medicine or Ayurveda? Oh, okay, we've got a few here. So basically what I'm going to do today is just give you an overview, a general 101, and getting to know your child's body type. And if you can get what I'm saying, if you can get what kind of body type they are, you're going to know how to prevent disease in your child, because you're going to know their type, you're going to know when they're most vulnerable to illness, what time of year, what time of day. So it's a really beautiful science. So, and it's very simple.
Remember, you tell them next to forward the slide.
Okay, next.
Yeah,
Okay.
So
it's Ayurveda is India's 5,000-year-old medical system, which makes this the oldest medical system in the world, and it's passed on from oral tradition. The Greek medicine and Chinese medicine have also derived from this. And what I like about that it's 5,000 years old is that all the bugs and all the kinks have been worked out already. In modern medicine, we are the guinea pigs. That's like 100 years old. So they know it. It works. It's basically based on the belief that health and wellness depend on this intricate balance of mind, body, and spirit. And Ayur means life, and Veda means knowledge. So basically the knowledge of life. This is a very simple concept. Next. So it's the first known science in which preventative measures are given. It's the mother of all sciences. In Ayurvedic texts, there are more than 10,000 medicinal preparations, and their actions are explained using 150 herbs. And I actually got to go to some of these Ayurvedic farms in India and see how these herbs were grown. And I don't have that video here, but it was fascinating. So here's the difference between Ayurveda and modern medicine. So Ayurveda focuses on prevention, and basically if you do daily rituals, you don't get sick. And then you're rejuvenated because you are preventing, and then there's a treatment. In allopathic medicine, which is modern medicine, it's like you get sick, here's the treatment, and then you're rejuvenated. And then, oh, by the way, let's just talk about preventing if you're still alive. So that's the difference between the two. So basically the theory is it focuses on prevention by providing guidelines on ideal daily rituals and diet and behavior. Next. So everything is connected in the universe. That's basically their main theory. So good health is achieved when your mind and your body and your spirit is in harmony with the universe. And when there's a disruption in this harmony, this leads to poor health and sickness. It's based on the elements found in nature, which is space, air, fire, water, and earth. And they combine to form these different amounts in our bodies. So basically, this is it's personalized to your type rather than using a conventional across-the-board approach to healing. We use non-toxic plants and spices and herbs to bring balance into the body, and daily rituals that are really key in bringing balance back into the body. So knowing your child's dosha. So these elements of air and water and space and earth, they combine to form these 3 life force energies called doshas. And they're called in Sanskrit vata, pitta, and kapha. And vata is air and space, pitta is fire, and kapha is earth and water. So they believe that health exists when there's a balance of these 3 doshas. And everyone inherits a unique mix of these 3 doshas, but usually one is more dominant. And this is a way to understand each individual's physical processes and their mental processes. Next. So let's talk about the first type, the vata type. Now the vata type of child, and when I say child, I also mean you can take this for adult too. It's the same thing. Vata type people are indicative. They have the qualities of winter, which are dry and cold and windy. So you can visualize the vata person as having the same kind of qualities of air and space and dryness and cold. And in the body, air is responsible for elimination, for movement, for breathing, for circulation and rapid firing of the neurons. So it's mainly brain and nervous system based, the vata type. Okay, next. The pitta. The pitta person is reflected by the summer season, so which is fire and water. So they have the qualities of heat, having its source as the element of fire. So the pitta person has qualities responsible for the functioning of the liver, of the skin, and digestive issues. And it transforms food into nutrients. Next, kapha. Kapha is a combination of earth and water, and it's reflected in the spring months. So it's got nature's heavy and solid elements. They tend to have slow, methodical qualities. It's got the principles of structure and solidity and bonding and cohesiveness and lubrication. Next. So at conception, each child is given some amount of each quality, and that proportion that's made up equals their dosha. And like I said earlier, there is usually one that's more dominant in the child's makeup. So this is more than just body type. It's like a true psychophysiological constitutional code, sort of like your individual genetic code, your blueprint for knowing that's unique to you. So the interesting thing is this body type influences how a person eats, how a person sleeps, how a person exercises, how they spend money. So if you know your type, you're going to become your own dietitian, your own personal trainer, and your own psychologist all in one. So, next. So some characteristics of the Vata type. They are usually the kids that are the thin kids, light, they're thin frames, they're skinny. They're very, they don't like cold weather, they have cold hands and feet, they have dry skin, they have frizzy hair, they have irregular digestion, irregular hunger, they have difficulty gaining weight, they're more prone to constipation because they're dry, they have the qualities of winter, and because it's a brain nervous system dominant, they have a tendency to be worrywarts, like anxiety and worry, and they're more nervous. They're very quick to grasp new information, but they also forget information quickly. And their sleep is light and interrupted. Next. And the characteristics of the Pitta, the summer type, this is the medium-build child, and they have an aversion to hot weather. So they're kind of the hot-blooded people. They feel very warm easily. They have warm hands and feet. They prefer cold food and cold drinks. They perform all their activities with medium speed. They have very sharp hunger and digestion. These are the kids that cannot skip meals. They have a medium memory. They take a medium time to grasp new information. They're more prone, they have a tendency towards, these are the kids that have more anger or irritability if they're off balance. Their character is very sharp. They're more competitive. They have a very strong intellect. They are very good leaders, and they are good public speakers. Next. Now the Kapha type, the spring type. This is the thicker build child, the bigger bone, the solid, heavier build. They have more strength and more endurance. They're very slow and methodical in their activity. They have oily skin, maybe moist skin. It's very thick. Their hair is thick. It's wavy. It's plentiful. They have a very steady personality. They're very tranquil. They're more peaceful. They're very slow to grasp new information, but they're also, once they get it, they don't forget. They're very slow to become excited too or irritated. These are the easygoing types, like, it's okay, don't worry about it. Very easygoing people. Their sleep is very long, very heavy, and they do not like wet temperatures or cold temperatures. So just as there are, just as there are 3 different body types, there are also 3 different life cycles. So in the early years, from birth until age 12, this is actually called the Kapha cycle. So I know Dottie had touched on this last time. This is, like the Kapha season is very moist and very wet, and this is why kids make mucus in the earliest years, because they're in the Kapha season of their life. So in the mucus stage, they're in this mucus stage because it lubricates the joints. And so just as the rain supports the growth of new leaves and new plants and new trees, mucus supports the elastic growth of a child. So it's very beautiful. Plants need a moist environment to germinate and grow, and children also need a moist medium. And this is the reason why they have more colds. And after age 12, we go into the next cycle. It's the Pitta time of year. This is from 12 towards 50 to 60. So just as the summer is hot, the active time of year, these are when plants and animals are most active in the long days of summer. So likewise, from our teenage years until about 50 to 60, we are in the most active time of our life. in the hot season. We are ready to take on the world, make our mark on society. We're working, we're raising our children. So we're all in the Pitta season at that time. The summer Pitta child may become overheated. They're more susceptible to inflammatory conditions, heartburn, skin and digestive issues, vision problems, and blood disorders. Next. The last cycle is the winter cycle, the Vata cycle. It's usually from age 50 to 60 onwards. It's in nature, winter is a time of dormancy when animals kind of hibernate and they bury underground, the trees lose their leaves, plants quietly die back, roots and seeds they wait for spring, and this is a time of rest. So just as the leaves dry out, we do too. Our skin becomes dry, our joints lose their lubrication, and they become stiff. So the body is winding down now after age 60, but the mind is still sharp. So as we age and we endure life stresses, the muscles grow tighter, our body becomes stiffer, and flexibility wanes. So there are 3 body types. Next, there are 3 body types, there are 3 life cycles, and there's also 3 types in a day. So this is very interesting. In the early AM, between 6 a.m. to 10 a.m., this is the kapha time. So this is why we kind of all wake up in the morning. Sometimes we have more mucus, but we don't have it all day, or we get that kind of that goop in our eye or something. That's the kapha time. And then in the afternoon, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., this is the pitta time, which is the increasing heat and fire time where we get things done. You have your highest digestive fire from the times of 10 and 2. So you always want to eat your biggest meal of the day between 10 and 2. And if you eat a really big meal at that time of the day, you're not going to have that 3 o'clock slump that everyone grabs something sweet because you're satiated. In other countries like Asia and Europe, like lunch is a huge thing. It's like when I would go home as a kid to India, it's like it was such a big deal. They would have this like 8-course meal for lunch. I'm like, it's only lunch. But we have it backwards here because we keep our biggest meal of the day in the evening, and then we can't digest it. So in Asia and Europe, the biggest meal is in the afternoon. And then the late afternoon, you go into the Vata time again, between 2 and 6. You're more creative, space and air. And then the evening time, 6 to 10 is the kapha time, where your digestion is slow. So what do? We eat a big meal at that time, but digestion is slow. And so when you sleep at night, when you sleep, you heal, you detoxify, and your body can't, kill off illnesses if it's too busy taking all that energy trying to digest that big meal we just had. So this is the key. If you can do these simple things, you'll see huge changes. And then again, it goes into the cycle, 10 p.m. to 2 is the pitta time. So this is why you want to get to sleep earlier, because in the mind, you know how you get a second wind? If you don't go to bed before 10, you get a second wind, and this is why. And then 2 a.m. to 6 a.m., the Vata time. Next. So here's a chart to summarize. Again, kids 0 through 12, they're in the kapha time of life, and the AM is the kapha time. From your teenage years to 50 to 60, you're in the pitta time of life, and the afternoon from 2 to 6 is the pitta time. From 10 to 2 is the pitta time. And then from 60 onwards, we're in the Vata season of our life, and then the Vata season from 2 to 6 is Vata, and then evening is kapha. Next. So what does this mean for your child? So if you get this, you're going to know when your child is going to get sick. You're going to know when they're most vulnerable to illness because you know their dosha. So I've passed out, I think Courtney passed it out. There's like a take-home chart. You can figure out what your child is, and it's very fascinating. So the Vata child, having the qualities of winter and air and dry, they're going to be most vulnerable in the winter time. So if you know you have a Vata child, you know winter's coming up, you know, hey, my child this is their time for getting sick. And these are the kids that get ADD, ADHD, they get dry skin, they get anxiety, they're underweight, insomnia. So you're going to know what to do before the winter happens. And then the Kapha child, you know, in the springtime, if you have a Kapha kid, you know that springtime's coming. This is when they're most vulnerable to illness because their skin is moist again, they're heavy set, they're rooted like a tree. And if you have a Kapha child, and as I said, all children before the age of 12 are in the Kapha time of their life, so it's like a double whammy. So you have to be most careful. These are the people that say, oh, when I was a kid, I was really sickly, and then I just sort of outgrew it. Well, this is why, because if you have a Kapha kid who makes mucus, and then they're in the mucus time of their life, it's doubly mucusy. So this is the child you don't want to give the dairy to, the cheese to, the yogurt, the pizzas to, because they're most vulnerable. Next. And then the Pitta child, the medium build child, it has the high digestive fire and the competitive. You know that when the summertime comes, this child is going to be the one that's going to overheat. They're going to get those red cheeks, they're going to have loose bowel movements, acne, skin rashes, poor vision. And as they get older, these kids are more prone to heartburn, ulcers, blood and inflammatory conditions. And this is also when your child is not balanced, because I know plenty of Pitta, Vata, Kaphas, and if you're balanced, you don't manifest these diseases. Next. I like this quote. It is more important to know what sort of person has a disease than to know what sort of disease a person has. William Osler. Basically, I wanted to let you guys know that this is where the biodiversity comes in. When we were at IIN, they always say, well, everyone's different, but why? Why are we all different? And I think Ayurveda really ties it in and tells us what's different. And there are many health food bloggers out there that say raw food, paleo, vegetarian, vegan, and I think they're all right. They have a piece of the puzzle, but they're also all wrong in the sense that if you know your body type, you're going to know what diet is best for you. So for instance, the Vata person, which is the qualities of what? Do you remember? Air and ether, correct. So do you think the raw food diet is good for them? No, because raw food and salads, it's air. It's light, it's airy. And if you're a Vata person who's air and you're eating air, do you think you're going to be, focused? No. So in Ayurveda, opposites balance. So the Vata person is going to need very heavy, oily, kind of more soups and warm stews to balance them in the middle. Likewise, I had a client, I want to give you a few client stories. I had a client come in, and I could just tell by looking at her, she was a Vata. She was a small, very petite woman, thin-framed, kind of bony. She was a lawyer, so she had a quick mind. Vatas make very good lawyers. She came to me and she said she started following this particular, I'm not going to mention names, but this particular health blogger's website. And she said, I'm eating really well, but I don't feel well, and I've been doing this for a year. And I don't know what's wrong with me. So I asked her what she was eating. And she's like, well, I eat green smoothies, I have salads, and I eat really well. And she'd given herself thyroid disease in this year and severe teeth. Her enamel on her teeth completely disappeared. She had a ton of cavities. And she's like, I don't know what's wrong because I'm trying to eat healthy. So I asked her, how much of this food are you eating? And she says, I eat this every day. And I said, for 1 year, you've been eating green smoothies, even in the wintertime when spinach doesn't grow? And she said, yeah, this person said to freeze your veggies and freeze your leaves for the winter, which this is, Ayurveda teaches to eat in seasons, and there's a reason for that. And she said, I eat a quart of green smoothies a day. Now, a quart is a blender full. For just this tiny petite woman, and we share between the four of us a green smoothie. And this woman was eating a quart a day, and she was eating salad. So she was a Vata, and she was just eating air all day. And the first thing I asked her was, can you focus? And she looked at me like, how did you know that I can't focus? She goes, I can't think anymore. I said, because I explained these principles to her, and I said, you need fats in your diet, you need oil, and it's going to ground you. So she did implement a few of the things that I said. She added coconut oil into her body, and she put it on her skin, and she ate it, and she said, I already feel so much better. But this is just an example of, when one blogger says something doesn't mean that it's good for you. And another example, well, even with me. So when I first got on this journey a few years ago, many years ago, I should say, I was following this particular blogger, and she said, drink green smoothies, they're really, really good for you. And this is when we lived in Texas. And during the summer, we had a really huge organic garden, and we would grow all of our, our kale, our spinach, all this amazing stuff. And in the summer, I loved it. So in the winter time, this is before I started studying Ayurveda more intensely, I would go into our bedroom. It'd be like 40 degrees, and there'd say snow flurries out. I'd go into my bedroom, shut the door, put on my big, fuzzy bathrobe so I could be really warm, turn on the heat, and drink this green smoothie. Because I said, oh, well, it's good for you, right? But my body intuitively didn't want it because it was cold food, and I'm a Vata, and I'm a cold person, and it didn't quite match. But I was like, oh no, it's good for you. That's what they say, kills cancer. But that was not what was good for me. So, as another example, you have to listen to your body. Another child, actually one of my daughter's friends, this is in school, her son was a kapha child, clear kapha, classic kapha child, bigger boned, really thick hair, moist skin, and it was the spring season, and I don't think I saw this child once without a cold for the whole 3 months. He had, in his lunch, he ate yogurt, dairy, cheese, pizza, and ice cream every day. And he was a kapha child. And it was the spring season. So no one ever wanted to sit near him because he was constantly boogery. But this is the thing where he would have done better. So this kapha child who's heavy and moist, a raw food diet or a green leafy greens would have really balanced this child. So the kapha child who's heavy and moist is eating heavy and moist food. And the vata person who was light was eating the light foods. So you can get there, you have to just balance it with the opposite, and that's what's going to keep you in balance. So those are my examples. Just basically nature is very, very intelligent, and you just have to follow. Okay?
I just try to be mindful.
Okay.
So.
I can talk forever. I'm a Vata.
She's like, once the cork comes out of this bottle, like, it'll never stop kind of thing. I mean, with love, but, it's like... and one of the sort of the strange paradoxes with it, a couple of things I just wanted to add to what she said just really quick, and then we'll shift gears a little bit, is one of the things that has to be understood is that this is all very much meant on the subtle body level as well. So in Indian philosophy, when they look at the way that they explain creation and the universe and all of this stuff, as the unmanifest becomes manifest, as God, before sort of creation, there was some sort of process that happened that it goes from unmanifest to this physical universe. And so the way they explain it is basically it goes from a more subtle to a less subtle sort of aspect. So it goes from that space to air to, fire, water, earth, and then they recombine. And so they look at the body as there's sort of a food body, there's a subtle body, there's a causal body. So it's really meant on sort of that, because I think that throws a lot of us Westerners off. It's like, well, this sounds like the old, humors and, bile and blood, and, it's Chinese medicine, it's fire and water. And it's like, well, where does that fit on the periodic table? Because that kind of doesn't make sense. That sounds old-fashioned. So I think if you look at it more in sort of that sort of way, then it can kind of fit in with the overall, and it doesn't have to be contradictory to science and what we're sort of more mentally used to. So it's interesting. It really makes a lot of good sense.
I shake it off,